everyone. This is a show called It's Spoilerin Time because myself and my co-host on this show here, Brian Brushwood, I'm Tom Merritt, by the way, we do a show called Cordkillers where we talk about all the technology, all the streaming services, all the stuff you can go out there and watch. And the whole reason we do it so we can watch cool stuff and enjoy it. And there is way more good stuff out there than ever before. And so, of course, one of the things you like to do when you watch good stuff is sit around and talk about it with your friends, right, Brian?
Heck yeah, but more. So what are we talking about in this episode?
On this episode, we're going to talk about episode 13, the season finale of season 3 of Justified. That's our library show. We're going back into the archives and watching that one. And we're going to talk about episode 2 of the first season of Westworld.
Yeah, but before that, we have a long-running issue that we got to resolve. I don't even know. Do we play the intro for it?
I definitely did not have it queued up.
Okay, well, then we're not. Hey, real quick, a bunch of people are asking us when we're going to do our winter movie draft. It's our own fantasy sports extravaganza only for box office numbers. And normally we would have done it by today, but we have members of the team who are out of the country. So we're going to declare it. We're going to set up the slate. We're going to set up the draft 1 week from today. As we record this on October 10th, it'll be on October 17th. Shortly after Cordkillers, we're going to have 6 players compete to put together the best slate in the winter movie draft of 2016.
And the first movie that we will bid on in that draft will be the October 19th presidential debate movie.
Wait,
right?
Is there a movie on the?
We should put that out. We should put it out as a movie.
The Lincoln Debater.
Wait.
What's the domestic gross of a presidential debate? Yeah, it's nothing, is it? It's a horrible idea.
No. But it's incredibly gross, though. Like, I think it's the grossest of all of them.
And domestic.
Yeah, it's the definition of domestic and gross. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you are. So we'll figure out what movies are going to be in it. Please come and enjoy us. Watch it live, or you can get it in your feeds if you're a Patreon at patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll let you know about it there. Let's start. Spoiler in Westworld. Episode 2 was released early. Brian, did you actually watch it early?
No, in fact, I actually watched it. We stopped watching the debates because it's like, hey, can we watch Westworld now? Like, I heard that it had come out, but then I was like, but that's my Sunday night thing that I do with Bonnie because we actually have a few minutes to sit and watch it together. So we watched it at the regular time. I assume you did watch it early.
You're a traditionalist. I respect that. We did watch it early, but sort of accidentally. It was because on Saturday we were sitting down and going through the Roku, and Eileen wanted to see something about the new Sarah Jessica Parker series,
Divorce,
which also was released early, as well as Westworld. And when I launched HBO Now, she noticed that Westworld was there. She's like, "Oh, well, do you want to watch Westworld first before I watch this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." So we watched it Saturday night.
Did you ever get around to watching Divorce?
No, she watched it. I went into the other room and did something else.
Yeah, that's Thomas Hayden Church with Sarah Jessica Parker. Like, he looks totally different with the mustache and everything.
Did you watch it?
No, I watched the preview that was force-fed to me because I happened to tune into Westworld.
Yes.
So
All right,
I know
so let's
these
talk about
things now.
Westworld, where we got the guy from Always Sunny in Philadelphia to show up, and we start to get some main characters here that we can build our identification around. I mean, you could identify with the programmers and stuff, but I never felt like you were supposed to. I felt like we needed our proxy, and these two guys, the one guy who's kind of a douchey, like, come on, man, we do this all the time. And the other guy who's very like, oh no, but I want to be nice. I want to be respectful to people. And that's very similar to the two main characters in the movie.
So I love watching the arc, the trading up that the actor who was originally played creepy incestuous twin brother on Always Sunny in Philadelphia traded up to creepy loner hacker trapped in House of Cards, and now I feel like he's getting closer and closer to leading action hero man. Like he can make that leap just like what's his name? The Jason Statham. You know, he goes from being the quirky hitman in Snatch to all of a sudden being this major box office draw. I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, and I certainly forgot who he was once his character began speaking and developing itself. I stopped thinking about him as the Always Sunny guy. Yeah, there you go. That's what I stopped imagining him as, is the guy in the robe. But I liked this episode better, and not to say I didn't like the first episode, but I felt like the story was starting to get traction and moving forward. And oddly, the only thing I missed, I'm curious if you missed this too, was I didn't feel like we made as much progress with the Man in Black, Ed Harris's character, as I thought we were gonna.
Oh my gosh, no, I disagree. Which again, I love. So I guess we'll start with the ending. The big ending scene is we see just how cruel he is and what this second game is that he's playing. And again, here's the weird part. Is we're seeing him be exceptionally cruel, but he's being exceptionally cruel to robots whose purpose is to be treated exceptionally cruelly too. You know, it's if you hate this guy, you hate yourself when you play Grand Theft Auto 5, because that's the exact parallel. He's not harmed a single human being at all. He just treats everyone like the programs that they are. And in fact, I think that we are going to be groomed, and this is the metagame, right? So you have players in Westworld trying to figure out what the writers had in mind for them to do. And then you have us, the viewers, wanting to know what the writers of the show Westworld want us to believe about characters. And you're starting to see these multiple different threads. On the one hand, you've got this element that's very Battlestar Galactica, because this is the second time they've played with us, letting us think somebody's real, and then whoopsie, they're a robot. Because, you know, the first time it was with the good-looking guy coming back. This time it was with the kid who says, I'm on vacation, but this whole place is boring. I don't understand it. And then instead, you know, Anthony Hopkins is like, let's go for a walk. And then at some point he's like, get out of here, robot. And the kid turns around and leaves.
Although I was in suspicion this time because we'd been fooled once. I'm like, not sure this kid is real, but they start even knowing that. They started to lure me in. Like, I started to believe maybe he was.
Well, and there's so many things, because it seems to be a rule that the hosts are only in the world. But we see that kind of leaking out, because before you enter Westworld, the robot chick walks in.
Where is she? We never get confirmation on that.
Well, okay. When she says, I'll have sex with you right now, your friends can wait. I thought that was pretty good indication.
I mean,
she says
it's
we hosts.
Circumstantial evidence, though, Brian.
She says we hosts. She says we hosts. She says we hosts exist only to serve you. And so she inclusively said that she's part of the club hosts. So unless you're saying some of them inside are humans, then I think it's a fair designation. Okay. But here's my point is, we don't know much about the outside world. And the use of synths, for lack of a better word, or we'll say hosts, because that seems like that'd be a pretty useful thing if you ran a factory, to have synths and intelligent synths at that. Although it's very clear that it's a novelty that they're so lifelike to the people showing up in the game world.
Yeah, and it takes you down a whole other road of speculation that's way outside the actual episode. But I like where you're going with that. Of like, maybe in the real world, synths, they don't spend a lot of time making them look and act real because they don't need to, and you actually don't want them to, because people will feel bad for them on the factory line. So they don't have skin and they don't have personalities. They just do all the jobs because they're really good at it. But then you go to this theme park where they're like, hey, man, we're going to pretty them up and make them look real because that's fun now.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind also, this to me is the hallmark of maybe not so much a good story so much as a good world. Like a good world, I just keep thinking back to it. I want to revisit it in my imagination and wonder what else might have been. You know, certainly Battlestar Galactica had that. Certainly The Dark Tower has that. Like this becomes a place I want to visit and understand. I continue to be amazed and in love with the anachronisms. And I saw an interview recently pointing out that because Westworld is a theme park, within the logic of the story, they are beholden to tell the best story, not to be chronologically accurate. So they've got guns from the 1920s and stagecoaches that were more 1880s, and it's this vague time period that they never even really say. And that means because they could do it there, they could do it in the show as well, which is why, think about it, if this takes place in a future, let's say 100, 200 years from now, it makes sense that the piano would be playing Black Hole Sun, because maybe at some point that's just super old music and it sounds good on a ragtime piano being the player piano, right?
Or it's a little nod to people like, we put all your favorites in here. Like, I loved that. I thought that was a great touch. Exactly what you're saying. Like, nobody's really going to notice that this is out of the time period. Like, it's just the piano.
Well, it would be
background.
roughly equivalent to, like, let's say there was a big band radio hit that was from the 1930s, but when played on a piano sounded old westy to us, and we would do that nowadays. Like, that is a forgivable offense. And likewise, I think it's a forgivable offense, to take a 20th century song.
I didn't even take it as an offense. I took it as a very, like, intentional plug to you as the viewer of, like, you recognize this, but they don't.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And I definitely felt like that's the case. But it also works with the internal logic of this world. It could be a license thing that the game designers did, or it could be I don't know. Who knows? But here, this is why I'm loving this show, is because I have all these predictions. I think we're going to be made to find Ed Harris's character increasingly repugnant, and at some point, just as we find certain characters, certain massive trolls on the internet completely repugnant, and then the schadenfreude comes out when they're seen photographed living in their mother's basement or whatever. I think that's what Ed Harris is. We're going to find out he's a low-level accountant in his day job, and nobody respects him in his office. But this is why he's been coming for 30 years to play the same game, because this is where he gets to be the Man in Black.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I also think he'll end up confronting a human at some point and show that he is way like, oh no, I would never hurt a fly, to humans.
Well, yeah,
I think he will back off, like, or maybe accidentally hurt a designer or something and go, oh crap, that was an actual person, and be horrified at himself.
When that happens, I'll bet I wouldn't be surprised if they did some kind of full circle nod and basically do a reenactment of the scene where Handsome Man was unable to shoot the Man in Black and was genuinely confused why his gun didn't work. I could see Man in Black doing the exact same thing, going to shoot someone and then realizing, oh crap, it's another human, it's another player, and then he's like, oh, hey, or maybe he becomes mad with power and actually starts, maybe in his mind, he's playing some, Easter egg hunt to win Anthony Hopkins' chocolate factory. I mean, it's like there's so many different familiar themes and vectors, and I'm so excited to know that they can play with them. What
do you think of the virus? We got introduced to the way awareness is spread, right? So Dad somehow got it. We don't know how Dad got it. And then he saw the photo, but he whispered to his daughter, these violent delights have violent ends. And suddenly she got the virus, and then she whispered it to someone who then passed it along. And then we see the madam get it whispered to her, and she starts to have awareness and remembering her past lives.
Yeah. I think that's a fine conceit. Because again, remember, we talked about this before, back in 1973, the Westworld movie pretty much, nailed the idea of the computer virus before anyone had a word for it, but that idea that errors can spread and propagate from, cell to cell throughout a system. And if you're going to do it in a way that plays on television, that's as fine a way as any, I think.
It struck me as very J.J. Abrams. Like it felt like the kind of thing that would have been thrown out in Lost, because it's got the pseudo poetry to it. And I like it as a mechanism that's more than just like having flashing lights come out of their eyes or some weird thing like that.
Yeah, well, and I think it's a very human way to convey it. And that's one thing they've really gotten right, is that they've made it clear that this is a show that uses robots to explore humanity. And it does so in a very human way, talking about, human desires. And I like the fact that clearly Anthony Hopkins' character is bored with the simple trash and flash of scaring somebody or giving them boners or whatever. And instead, he clearly has something in mind, something bigger. I don't know. I'm increasingly convinced they're going to kill him off by the end of the season. My guess is like he launches his side new park. They're like, oh my God, this is the biggest advance ever. And then one of the robots kills him or something, and he's out of the picture. And then everyone's like, it becomes this black box that everybody's increasingly trying to dig into.
Well, you've got the designer who's already set up to want to have revenge on him because he put his whole new storyline on display, and Anthony Hopkins just walks up and goes, "Nope."
Well,
and so there's motivation
that had
there.
He even had a bigger impact in that moment because they had said the old man's never chimed in on a pitch in forever years. It'll be fine. And then instead, this is the moment. He's just like garbage, all garbage.
Yep.
Nope.
And so that guy could be the downfall of Anthony Hopkins' character in one way or another.
Yeah, I hadn't really pieced that together. What'd you think about that moment, the hookup moment between the executive and the tinkerer?
Oh yeah, no. As soon as she came to his door, I flashed on like, oh, so they're together.
But they're keeping it quiet.
And they're keeping it quiet. I was lost a little more and thinking like, oh, so they just live on site? Do they all live on site? And like, do they ever leave? Do they have other homes and they just stay for certain amounts of time? Like, again, that sort of off-world stuff that this show is so good at that makes you start to wonder how it all works.
I mean, I think isn't that the way it is? Like, especially for the young people working at a Walt Disney World or whatever, they have dorms on campus,
I didn't realize that.
The benefit, you get paid crap money, but you get unlimited park privileges. You get to be and experience and go as often as you want. I would imagine it's something kind of like that.
Yeah, so it was just making me wonder how that all worked. And so now we know we've got an alliance between the corporate woman and Anthony Hopkins #2, who's the pure art.
And
so
by the way,
art.
everybody, we're gonna learn their names. You just gotta give us more than 2 episodes, or we're gonna make names and make them consistent.
Yes. So I don't even know what to call her. She anyway. Yes. I think that's an intriguing development, and you would have thought after the first episode that they were sort of uneasy opponents, and it turns out that they're only uneasy in public.
Yeah. So I like all the characters that we're seeing. I really enjoyed watching the tweaking process, even though it was this very rudimentary. Increase empathy 2%, like whatever that means, bleep blop bloop. But to see the same scene enacted with in increasingly curious ways, like first with a over aggressive hard sell, or first with an undersell unrelatable to a guy, then an aggressive hard sell that fails to a chick, and then nailing it with the 3-way of the married couple or whatever. I mean, I thought it was that was good storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see where it goes next week.
Yeah.
Probably more into the West. Yeah, it's funny. The one thing Eileen says about it is she likes the story, but she's not as into Westerns. She doesn't like Westerns. And so it loses something. She's like, if it was like Medieval World or Rome World, like from the movies, she would be more into it. So
by the way,
it's going to have to work a little harder for people who don't like Westerns.
Fan theory.
I like Westerns, so that part works for me too.
You ready? What
am I ready for?
Those exist because you remember in the movie, there's Westworld, there's Medieval World, and then there's Rome World.
Right.
Rome World actually exists, and it was the HBO series Rome. Medieval World actually exists. It was Game of Thrones. Westworld is happening. We're just seeing the part of the story where Westworld doesn't go according to plan.
All of this has happened before, and all of it will happen again. Or go now.
There are other worlds than these. and through this exit,
exactly.
Through this door to the other world. Just go down the beach.
I liked that. I liked how they get into it, where they like just walk through a door and then they're on the train, and then the train takes off, and that was a pretty elegant way to get them into the park too.
Yeah. Oh wait,
right,
maybe Westworld is Deadwood in this theory.
Oh no, you're right. Dead World had an untimely demise.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. because there was a glitch in the game.
Yeah. Well, no. Yes, that. But it like they got canceled it before they actually finished the series.
I think they used part
maybe
of
we'll
the
see the end of Deadwood in Westworld.
Supposedly, they used part of the Deadwood set on Westworld.
Oh well, there you go.
So
Perfect.
Well done.
All right, let's finish up with Justified. Robert Quarles, Ken Cohen says, screwed up in Detroit. So Ken, I think, is writing in response to our discussion last week of Brian's continued to be stymied, that Quarles seems to be acting without enough motivation. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I had mentioned that it just seemed like a switch got flipped for no reason, but he's giving. I think he makes a very compelling case for the reason that Quarles flew off the handles, because and it does kind of come about in reverse order, in that you get the context of his backstory after you're seeing him break down, or more of that context. The way Ken writes it is, hey guys, Robert Quarles screwed up in Detroit. He's been down this manic sex slave drug addiction path before. The big boss and father figure found out about it and cut him off. Quarles cleaned himself up, convinced the boss to give him a second chance. Second chance is his plan for making money in Kentucky. So he gets there and he's the big bad man with a plan from Detroit, and things go well for him starting out. But then between Raylan, Boyd, and the big boss's son, he's getting shut down at every turn. Every time, everything he tries to get himself out of, it backfires and fails. He says, Ken says he thinks the actual turning point for him was Boyd outmaneuvering him with the sheriff election. Quarles thought he had just won, but then when Boyd swoops in and pulls the rug out from under him, and he calls Quarles a carpetbagger, it's directly after that when he starts popping pills in the car. It's a spiral into madness again from there. Losing to Boyd in the election was the turning point. You could finally see him lose his cool when talking to Boyd. It's everything he could do not to pull out that taxi driver gun and shoot Boyd right on the steps of the sheriff's office. Maybe the show could have done more to make the impact of that scene clear. I don't know. Anyway, that's my take on it. I think he nailed it. I think reading that description, I'm like, everything makes sense now. And certainly now that I have all the pieces, since we just got to the finale, I'm able to enjoy the whole story much, much more than I was during it.
I didn't really love this episode. It felt like a mid-season episode to me. And this goes back to something I said last week, where I felt like all the important things were happening in the second to last episode, like all of the storylines getting resolved. And this episode was just a manhunt for Quarles, basically. We did get the nice twist, though, which made me change my mind by the end, where we find out that Arlo... I was like, how did Arlo kill anyone? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But they pin it on Arlo because everybody will believe it because they've been setting it up as senile. And it turns out that Boyd's cousin is actually the one who shot the sheriff, but not the deputy.
Oh, I thought the big twist you were going to say is that it turns out that the Shield and
oh yes, when we see Vic Mackey's wife.
Yeah, exactly. Because I assume that she adopted a couple of kids, became a hardcore Christian, went to a festival, and then got mixed up with, I guess, Boyd Crowder's doppelganger, or I guess.
Well, the older daughter took off, and those are the two. That's the younger boy,
and for some reason,
and the baby.
Yeah, and I guess she never saw Boyd Crowder, so there would never be. I'm liking this theory. I want to tie it all together. And then
wait till she sees Boyd Crowder and goes, I know you. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a good episode as far as a manhunt for Quarles goes. Did you like it?
I liked it a lot. I liked it because it was the final chapter of, to me, the most interesting one-off character that we've had so far. I think that Quarles came on strong. I think they added a lot of depth. They had a gimmick, and again, if you look at through the archetypes of superpowers, he had a different superpower than Raylan's or Boyd's, and it turns out Boyd's mastermind superpower was too much for his clever gun superpower. Limehouse, I don't know. Let me start with all the things I love the most. I think that Robert Quarles, that guy playing him, I felt the madness. I felt the despair. I felt the weakness in him like I'd never seen before, but also the devilishness and the cleverness and the methodical nature of it all, and just to have it all come down at the end. So are you saying that Quarles was lying when he said it was your dad that shot the sheriff? Because he laughs at the end and says it was your old man. That's why.
Yeah, I don't know why he says that, because the cousin, but in a scene after that, admits to being the guy who he's on the phone and he's like, I pinned it on Arlo, so nobody knows I did it. And Boyd suspects nothing.
But Quarles was there when it happened, or did he hear about it?
I don't know.
Okay, it could be one of two
That part's
things.
a little unclear to me, too.
Yeah, it could be that they fed it to Quarles at some point. And maybe my only question is, when Quarles said it, was he saying it knowing it was a lie, or was he just misinformed? Because
that's a really good question.
I feel like he was just.
I'm still wondering that.
I feel like he was misinformed because he had the mad cackle of somebody who knew he was dying, but knew he had the one piece of information that could really screw over Raylan's day as he went out.
Totally.
I did like that kind of setup where it's like, I couldn't see any way for Boyd not to go to jail. They're going to find Devil's body. And they definitely in the recap showed him, remember Boyd definitely shot Devil dead. And then they had the weapon and the body and all that stuff. I'm like, well, there's no getting around that. And then part of me had this wave of like, I'm kind of over seeing Boyd in prison. It's like, I guess we'll have to suffer through another season of that. But instead, just the Arlo twisteroo and the double twisteroo of, him giving up or taking the fall for Boyd, like the crushing nature of like, wow, how much does it suck that Arlo felt like Boyd was more of a son than Raylan. And then that double whammy when Raylan goes to visit his baby mama and says, I don't know. They said, he thought Art thought I would be more upset because he said he couldn't, he didn't even know he shot a sheriff. He just thought he shot a man in a hat, which again makes me think that Arlo did shoot him. I feel like.
Oh, maybe I'm confused then.
Yeah, Let's see. Anyway, somebody can write us.
It still works though, because all you need out of it either way is Raylan upset that he thinks Arlo would have shot him.
But regardless, that moment. When he just says he didn't even know he was shooting a sheriff, he was just shooting a guy in a hat, and then turns around and puts on the hat. Like that was a really, I wouldn't go so far as to say understated, but it was paced just right that I didn't feel like they were hitting it over the head or anything. Like Arlo
Natalie Zaya's reaction. I thought Natalie Zaya's reaction to that was perfect.
Yeah,
where she just looks at him like, "What do you mean, guy in a hat?" And then he puts on the hat, and you see her go, "Oh,
yeah." The thought that his dad thought he was killing his son. Ugh, that's dark stuff.
So now we have some more reason for Raylan to hate Boyd. Boyd's free. Like we're going into season 4 with nice, deep characters with lots of motivations, but no particular constraints on where they can take the story.
Yeah, I'm also
because Quarles is eliminated, Detroit's out of it. Like that's all free and clear. I guess it's basically like, can Raylan run down Crowder's nefarious activities?
Keep in mind also, we had a significant element that's going to be in there. Limehouse said he would give the money. There's nothing that Quarles had that was worth $500,000, and then Raylan said, "You got a free pass. I'll not, and he didn't end up paying it. And maybe that'll be a dispute or at some point because I assume.
No, that's a card that's still on the table though, ain't it?
Yeah. It's like you said, the pass, and I'm sure that's going to have ramifications down the line.
Yeah. Also, Limehouse with the butcher knife and then taking the arm off. The whole thing with the piggy bank and the butcher, like that whole setup was just elegant.
Sure. Elegant isn't the word I would use. It was.
You didn't like it, huh?
It was a little bit over the top, a little bit cartoony.
Oh, that was over the top for you? Okay.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the chess game is over the top always. The machinations, the wheels within wheels, the everybody knowing what everyone else is doing. Like, yeah, that's always going to be over the top. But then there's moments
I love the piggy bank though.
Piggy bank was clever, although it made me think like that's not going to keep for a long time. It's like, is that a fake pig that would just look like nobody
and if
noticed?
It's a fake pig, how does he make sure that nobody butchers that accidentally? Is he the only one who ever butchers the pigs? Because then that's a real time suck. Like he can never delegate that. So.
Well, although it was great, like he chops it open and it splits open. I'm like, oh, that's a clever way to stash the money. But then Quarles explains the joke to me, and I didn't realize it until he started laughing and says, "Ah, piggy bank," and I'm like, okay.
Drug-addled. Yeah. No, I was the same. I until he said it. I was like, oh, I get, yeah, no, that's good.
Well, and what a way to sell a groaner of a joke is to have a madman, losing his crap at the end, and it did sell it. I mean, it was great.
So next time we will start season 4, which means we are steaming close to the halfway point on the 7 seasons of Justified.
Justified is over, right? The final season has happened?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm interested. It'll be good.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks everybody for hanging with us. We will spoil you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.